Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Chris McLean. This is Hater Radio. This is a college football brand on YouTube, on all the podcast formats that you can find. Our slogan is embrace the rivalry. So we try to embrace it. So I'm wearing my green on Wear Green Wednesdays for USF. Shout out to the Bulls there. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Ian is going to be coming on at some point soon, so we're waiting for him. So yes, this is a live show. So this is not, recorded earlier. This is directly live when you're watching this. So I'm waiting on him, but I wanted to talk about the college football playoff rankings. I don't know. I mean, I guess Ohio State at 1 was kind of a surprise. I think most people would have thought it would have been either Georgia or Michigan. The other surprise, probably Florida State at 4 over Washington. I think because Washington did have the big victory against Oregon, which is probably the biggest victory that anybody has right now in the top like 10. But they struggled in a lot of their other games. So I think that's where Florida State probably holds an advantage on them because they've only struggled in 2 games, which, struggling against BC does look bad, but they only really struggled against Clemson as well. Besides that, the rest of the games, they've blown out everyone they've played, largely to do with how bad some of these other teams are that they've played. The LSU game, LSU shot themselves in the foot to get in that position because they were really on the way to like being up like 31-14 at half and kind of really exploded there. But anyways, yeah, so Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. If it ended today, that would be the playoff, and then it would be Florida State versus Ohio State. That'd be a good matchup. I think Ohio State could win that because their defense, and I think they'd be able to do enough offensively to score on Florida State. And then the Michigan-Georgia game, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say. Michigan really hasn't played anybody yet. They do end up playing Penn State and Ohio State near the end of the year. So we'll see how good they really are. Georgia obviously has proved themselves, and they have quite a gauntlet here coming up with Missouri, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Georgia Tech. And do not think lightly of that Georgia Tech team. They've already beaten UNC and Miami, so they're definitely a viable team to put a scare into that Georgia Bulldog team, especially in a rivalry game, which has probably been several years since we've been able to say that in the Georgia Tech-Georgia rivalry game. So I might get more thoughts from Ian on that, but let's see if he's there. Ian's still not there. So we're just going to have to go along the show without him. Okay, first game I wanted to talk about is the USC-Washington game. I originally was wanting to go to this game, but we got invited to go to Walt Disney, Disneyland with friends. So we're going to go to Disneyland instead. I know Disneyland or college football game. Trust me, I'd much rather go to the college football game, but it's whatever. We were talking about going to Disneyland probably a little bit sooner, but for whatever reason, we could only get in this weekend. We wanted to do it like during the Halloween stuff, but it's obviously November 1st, so it's over. So, but anyway, so on to this game. Now, Washington is right there on the doorstep of getting into the playoff. They just have to prove themselves a little bit more, and then more than likely will get in, especially if they're undefeated. Because right now they have USC and they have Washington State as well to go, and I believe Oregon State If I'm certain, let me see. Let's look this up real quick. No, they have Utah. Okay, so even tougher. Um, so they've got a gauntlet. If anyone's got a gauntlet as well, similar to what Georgia has, they've got USC this weekend, Utah next weekend at home, and then on the road in Corvallis against Oregon State to follow up the last game being a rivalry game with Washington State, which is not an easy one. So, and if they survive that with one loss in those games, they will be rewarded by playing Oregon again in a neutral site game for the Pac 12 championship. So they have a lot to play for. On the other side, with USC, where it's been kind of, the defense has been so bad. I mean, they really led a lot of huge runs in that Cal game. Um, they have made some stops when needed. In the Utah game, seemed like they had the stops and they were getting penalties. In the Cal game, they stopped on that 2-point conversion. They stopped in that Arizona game. So it's funny how it's like, the defense has been very bad in some instincts. And then at certain points, they've come up huge. So I don't know. Maybe they can step up in this game. I think they're at the point now where they're more than likely going to have to let go of Alex Grinch. I don't know, there's no reason to keep him after this year. Like, there really isn't a reason to keep him. He's been subpar to say the least, and the team has suffered because of that, because this is a team with a Heisman winner, with the potential of getting in the playoff, and now, all that's gone out the window. They still have a shot at the Pac-12 championship because one of their losses was against Notre Dame, so they only have one conference loss. So there's a chance that they could get back in the mix for the conference championship game, which, if they went and won out the rest of their games, which is possible, but they have a gauntlet as well. They've got this game against Washington, Oregon on the road in Autzen, and then a home game against UCLA the second to last week of the season. So USC has a ton of tough games coming up here these next 3 weeks, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. I don't know. I honestly don't envision them winning both of these games against Washington and Oregon. I think they can win one of them, and I think this game is the most likely that they could win. I think it's going to be a struggle going into Autzen Stadium in Eugene to try to beat Oregon. So I think their chance is really against Washington. But Michael Penix Jr. is no joke, and he's making plays all over everyone, putting up huge numbers. I mean, Caleb isn't that far behind him as well, as far as season totals go. So I don't know. This is a tough call here. I think that here's Ian. Hello.
Hey,
So
got him just in time.
yeah. I'm already talking about the USC Washington. So I was about to give my prediction, but I want to hear your thoughts on it, then I'll give my prediction and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So this one, I'm pretty sure this is the one Game Day is going to. This is as due.
No, they're going to Alabama.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
but I forget. I thought they went to SC or Washington. Regardless, for SC, this is as do or die as it gets. They have the one conference loss against Utah, and then they, obviously the loss to Notre Dame. At this point, you're really vying for, a New Year's Six bowl. At this point, it's the level of desperation is paramount for SC because this season, literally right in front of us, is getting away from them.
Yeah.
They have had way too many close games. Arizona, Colorado, and then last week against Cal, where they barely survived.
Yeah.
These, the trick of this is seeing how well. Honestly, it's going to come down to how well, if there's any stops the defense can get out of Washington, which is a tall task because you're asking the perennial Heisman frontrunner and one of the most elite offenses in the country right now to tell them to stop. And when they've given up over 40 points to teams, like Arizona. So that is in Cal. It's very depending on how well USC can control the ball. If they can eat up clock, keep it away. Again, I know I mentioned this a lot, but it is very important in these games is time of possession, especially in these types of games where clearly Washington's main weapon is the offense. And USC has to know that. Lincoln Riley's got to go into that game knowing that is the most potent attack they have. So it's going to be a matter of how much they can play keep away.
If that's the case, then what he should do, if they're really trying to keep away, I would just put it in Marshawn Lloyd's hands the entire time, because then that slows down the game a ton. And he puts up huge numbers every week. And I'm surprised he hasn't gotten the vast majority of carries. I know he's getting the heavy load, but I'm talking put him at the 20 to 25 range of carries, especially in this game, to try to slow down Washington, because they're going to score. There's no doubt in my mind that Washington is going to put up 35 points minimum. And, you're just really going to hope that you slow down the game enough to where you move the ball, score, but you're taking so much time off that you take away possessions from Washington, which will be key, especially first half, if they can slow it down to where limit Washington to 3 possessions, or maybe even at most 4. And then you have a real shot in the second half to really take advantage of that. We'll see. I mean, it's going to definitely be a test. I talked a little bit about the playoff. I wanted to bring it up because I was talking about it before you jumped on. The fact that, this is the last year of the 14 playoff, and we're moving towards 12 teams. And I noticed Emmanuel Acho, he's a analyst on Fox Sports, and he was talking about how Caleb Williams should sit out the rest of the year. And what's sad is he might be some truth to it, but next year when there is a 12-team playoff, you know what? Most teams are going to be in it until the very end anyways. So this is going to get eliminated. And that's what I don't think people realize, how encompassing and how much more of a better situation it's going to be with the playoff. It'll eliminate people sitting out, because now instead of bowl games that don't matter, it's going to be playoff games that you have a chance to get into a championship game. And then, not only that, then it's so many teams are involved. We have, instead of 4, 5, 6 teams that know that they have a chance, we're going to have minimum 15 to 20 teams, maybe even more. Maybe the entirety of the top 25 has a legitimate shot of getting into the playoff now. That is such a broad scope that now all these teams are oh, we got a chance. We actually have a legitimate shot of winning every year, instead of Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. Now we're going to have Penn State, who has never been in the playoff, has a legitimate shot to actually do some damage if they're worthy once they get in. And then it's teams like Tulane, this year they have 1 loss to Ole Miss, which they barely lost. And Pratt wasn't even in that game, where it's man, why did they get hampered there? When if we come into a playoff situation with 12 teams, they more than likely Tulane will get in. And so, bless you. And so it's so we have a real shot of some parity, some huge games. I mean, not to mention my favorite part about the entire 12-team playoff scenario is the fact that we have home playoff games, which has to ramp up everyone's energy. I'm sorry, how can you not be pumped about a home game in the swamp against the likes of Penn State, Washington, or Oregon? That game would be a monster. The ratings would be through the roof. I don't even know how to explain. I'm so excited. I don't think people realize how good of a scenario we have coming in next year. I think they're kind of like, they're jaded by what's happened with the 4-team playoff, and they don't realize, that in the 12-team playoff there will also be a lot of upsets, which that's going to be huge as well, because it's like there hasn't been that many upsets in the 4-team playoff at all. So like if we go into this 12-1, there's going to be a lot of teams that get beat that probably shouldn't be, and then it's like then it actually brings some huge parity to it. So I'm excited. But Ian, what are your thoughts on the playoff? And then we'll finish off this USC talk.
I'm definitely for the expansion of the playoff. The one thing that they're going to have, and I know they've discussed it too, is with the loss of the Pac-12, they're going to have to reconsider, the automatic qualifier,
Yeah.
because now you have down to Power Four conferences.
Yeah.
So that's something that they're going to discuss, and I think that's the only wrinkle in it. Other than that, I'm all for the expansion of it. I always thought at minimum there should have been 8
Yeah.
getting in, because there's just too
100%.
many teams in this. And again, all the things you said, I'm for the home playoff games and then going to the bowl games and all that, because it also negates all the sit outs in these bowl games,
Yep.
because then you have games that matter. Not saying
Yep.
like the games, bowl games, New Year's Six games, they do matter. I always hear that, it doesn't matter anymore. For a lot of teams, it is a big deal. But obviously, looking back on the evolution of college football, it just makes more viable sense for a lot of these kids to just sit out.
Yeah.
But now that it's a playoff game, yeah, absolutely. You would get a lot the little best versus the best going at each other. But yeah, that's at least my opinion on the playoff.
Nice. Okay. So what is your prediction on this Washington USC game?
Yeah, so both of them, they have elite offenses and weak defenses. I know Washington is like 90s for defense, and SC's in the hundreds, because
Yeah.
they famously. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about how bad the defense has been. I honestly think it's going to be a shootout, and it's going to come down to who has the ball last. I feel like though, what
I know it's a
I don't
tough
know.
one. This is a very tough one.
I think knowing the weapons that they have, I feel like SC will pull this win out, only for
Yeah.
the fact of not only is will they have Caleb Williams, who should be he's having, for Caleb Williams standards, a very rough go of it. But they'll have him, but they'll also have Lloyd and the rushing attack as well to keep the Washington defense off balance. And we saw Oregon have a very effective running game against Washington.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take SC in a close. I'm gonna go like literally like 45-42 SC. Although I could totally, this could easily be the other way around. I could totally see the Huskies winning this one too.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, this is like USC's last stand. It really is. And they I think they realize that as well. They struggled against Cal, which they shouldn't have. Cal is not a good team, and their defense was very porous. But again, if they have the right strategy to attack this team, they have a chance, which I think they will be able to. And I think USC does enough on offense and plays keep away from Washington. And like you said, I'm going to say at least like a 38-35 game, and probably last team with the ball wins. And I'm going to say USC as well, just because I think like Washington like wants this one. Obviously, they want to stay undefeated, but I think USC like
Needs it.
yeah, and it's like to them like this is a game that they're like, you know what? It's like almost checking your manhood, where it's like, dude, like, are you going to just come in this game and fold? Are you going to come in this game and like really show up and really show what you are worth? And I think they can, because I know there's a ton of talent on this USC team, and I think they can put up a good performance, and I think they get them. Okay, moving on to UCLA. I actually
oh, excuse me again. Thank you.
I have something from my friend Richard, if you're listening, I want to just convey this information across. So UCLA's attendance for last game was 71,343, which was the highest since 2017. That's good for them. And it was the highest attended game of the season for the entire Pac-12 conference.
Really?
Yeah, so it was a lot. And he said that it was about 75% UCLA fans.
And then like 25% Colorado.
Yeah. And then yeah, he thinks that UCLA could get upset in this Arizona game. And
this is a trap game.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what I will say, that I know we've been talking about Arizona. You just mentioned it earlier when talking about USC and where they struggled. This Arizona team is actually surprisingly good, because they ended up beating Oregon State and Washington State pretty convincingly. And this team is not a joke, and they're at 5-3, so they're not that far off. And they played well against Washington as well. They're very close to being a good team. And I can see Arizona winning this game, but the only reason that I'm probably not going to say that is because of UCLA's defense. And the reason being, you saw it in that Colorado game. They were ferocious. They got after Shedeur. They had him down countless times. I didn't even have like an eye on the whole game. Obviously watched the whole highlight, the 12-minute highlight reel, but like just when I was watching it at dinner, I would look up and I would see Shedeur Sanders on the ground. I'm like, man, this team is ferocious. And they were in the backfield like the entire time. And I'm telling you, I think they can do the same thing with this game. And I think that'll be the difference. I think UCLA takes this one. I'm going to say like UCLA wins like 32-24. What do you got?
Yeah, I think for this one, I agree. I do think this is absolutely a trap game for UCLA, and it's just going to be effective, or how effective they're going to be from the jump. Because I could honestly see Arizona jumping on them. But I will say the one safety blanket they have is that the defense is so elite. I know they have a top 10 defense right now, and absolutely annihilated Colorado. Gave Sanders' life a living hell. So with that, I feel like if they get off, that can afford the offense to get off to a slow start and then get it going in the second half. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Arizona may be jumping out to 10, 13 points, maybe, but when they could honestly get a lot more out of it. So I'm going to go UCLA win in a bit of a comeback. I'm going to go with a 28-16 win for the Bruins.
Nice. Okay. Next game, I actually just found out before we went on air that Shamar James is out for the year. So, Florida is going to be without their star linebacker. It's a very big loss because he's been pretty much the best defender they've had all year, and besides Princely. And, he's been doing so well. I know he had some games where he wasn't as great, and he was obviously hurt last week against Georgia. But it's tough to see him out. Hopefully he can recover and get ready for next year. And, hopefully the guys that are going to be filling in for him, Derek Wingo a little bit, and then Nunnery, and I'm trying to think who else. Some other guys that are going to come in and hopefully step up. The next year with the recruiting, if it stays the way it is, there's like 4 linebackers that are coming in for Florida that are going to completely change this linebacking core. So, it's a struggle the last 2 years, and it looked better this year, but I would expect if they can keep this class that they should be a pretty good linebacking core going forward. And it's going to be a huge difference with pressuring the quarterback, because a lot of those guys are like edge guys that are coming in, that is their linebackers. And so it's a shame, but hey, they'll figure it out. So coming into this game, it's Florida, Arkansas. Florida is wearing their black uniforms in honor of the the military for Veterans Day, because this game is November 4th,
Yep.
and Veterans Day is not till the 11th, but they're not back at home until like the end of the month. So they decided to do the Veterans Day tribute this game, and it sucks that it's a noon game. I'm seeing that the weather is not going to be too miserably hot, so it won't be like that much of a problem. It still would have been nice to see these uniforms at night under the lights. But you know what? It's a tribute to the military. So this is what it's all about. It's not really about the specific uniform. It's about honoring those that have served. So this is what they want to do. This is the right thing. I have no problem with it. And it's just because Arkansas is 2-6 at this point. So they moved this game to a lesser palatable spot so that the bigger games like LSU, Alabama, and Georgia, Missouri, have the spotlight on Saturday. So, I would hope that they can recover from what happened last week against Georgia. It was a poor performance all around. They struggled immensely. The fourth down that they didn't convert and the sack fumbles were really the changing point or the turning point in that game. But they haven't turned the ball over much all year, and they get into that game and turn it over like those two times, and then that punt that got blocked. And so like all three of those scenarios resulted in 16 points for Georgia. So it was pretty much the difference in the game right there. I mean, Georgia probably would have won the game without all of that going down, but it's pretty much was a nail in the coffin. But as far as this game, I think Graham Mertz should have a decent game. I think they'll be able to move the ball effectively, have Trey Wilson make the plays that he need. Arkansas's defense is not that strong. They've given up a lot. They have stayed in a lot of the games that they've played, even though that they are 2-6, but they also struggled in games, much like the Mississippi State game where they scored 3 points. And that's where they fired the offensive coordinator, Dan Enos, and coming in is offensive coordinator Kenny Guyton. And Kenny is a former Ohio State Buckeye where he played quarterback for them. And then he played some professionally and then got into coaching. And he's been all over the place coaching wise. And then he got his big step up was at Colorado State, where he was the pass game coordinator. And then he got to Arkansas shortly after that. And I don't think he was a pass game coordinator there, but he was wide receivers coach last several stops that he's done, and he's now taking over for Dan Enos. So we'll see coming into this game if they're going to be, more polished. They had a bye week, so that helps them out a lot. Will having that bye week, a bunch of preparation to get through what Guyton wants to do, get them into Saturday against a wounded Florida team that, obviously without Shamar James now, I think they can make plays on defense. Maybe Jason Marshall, who struggled, and so did Jalen Kimber in that Georgia game. Maybe they will be able to pick it up. Wide receiver wise, Arkansas is not, tearing up the world. I do like their running backs, Sanders, and there's another guy that's come in because Sanders.
Duvinian?
Yeah, because Sanders was hurt most of the year, and so they running wise, they're a decent team, but just their passing attack has been lacking considerably, and I think that even with the benefit of getting a week off and a new coordinator, I think Florida can still get this game. They just need to eliminate mistakes, stay away from turnovers, and then maybe force a turnover. God, I mean, they only
Yeah.
had 4 forced turnovers all year, and 2 of them came in one game against South Carolina. So they need to get the ball somehow. I know it's like not the end of the world to not force turnovers, but it does help with momentum and you know, confidence on defense. And it's just something that we need more of. 4 is definitely very low. I mean, that's one of the lowest turnover amounts I've seen for a Florida team in a long time through 8 games. But Ian, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah. Real quick, because you brought it up, if you know me and anybody else who knows me, I am big on uniforms and stuff.
Yeah,
Um, it is cool that it is for the military and all that, but I'm going to be brutally honest. Burn me at the stake. I've never been a fan of Florida wearing black. I get it.
yeah,
They just it's not our colors, and I know people are like, "Oh no, we wear black in every other sport," but I'm like, even when the baseball, basketball team does it, I don't know. It just doesn't. It's not my thing. I blue, orange, white. That's my thing. Other than that, at least it's for a good for Veterans Day. You know that's cool.
yeah,
Besides that tangent, um, this is absolute. Again, this is another trap game. Clearly for Florida, Arkansas is going on a bye week that they desperately needed, and now Florida's coming back from Jacksonville after getting their ass handed to them. No other way to put it. They were outcoached, outplayed, out everything in that game. So now you're going into this, and the biggest thing is not looking at the record. Not looking. Yes, Arkansas has lost all these games in a row. Yes, they've lost 2-6, and they haven't won a conference game yet. If they focus on that, they're going to be in a lot of trouble
yeah,
because we've seen this when this team does not get out to a good start and plays down to their competition. It is really tough for them to come back, especially against certain teams. For example, they played down against Kentucky, never were able to recover. The Charlotte game, they had the one good drive, and then for the rest of the game, they were very anemic on offense. And that's where really the big thing is going to be is how well the offense um, can jump on Arkansas. Arkansas all around, both offensively and defensively, it's not where they definitely want it. So now it's a matter of Florida taking advantage of that. If the offense, again, if the running game is effective, it's going to make the offense, run that much easier. Again, that was the problem with Georgia. The running game wasn't really there, and it came down to Mertz trying to win the game, and straight up, we can't do that right now. Not against Georgia. So that's what I think, what it's going to come down to is, again, how well the running game will be. Because if the running game runs smooth, Florida will put up enough points to distance himself from Arkansas. Because as great as KJ Jefferson is, he really is a really good quarterback for the SEC.
yeah.
They shouldn't have enough to kind of hang with Florida if the offense is running as good as it is and as it should be. So if Florida, plays up, doesn't, sleepwalk into this one, you know, ignores Arkansas's record and they were able to handle Arkansas's attacks, I think they're going to have a jump to them
Yeah.
because they're off their bye week and all that. I think Florida should win this. I think for, if we're doing a prediction, I'm going to take Florida winning this one. And I think it'll kind of be some ugly football, but I think they do enough to win. And I'm going to go with a 27-14 win right now, although that could be a lot closer depending on how effective the offense is.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my biggest takeaways from last week against Georgia was the fact that um the tackle play, the offensive tackle play, both left and right tackles was, very underwhelming, and it led to those fumbles and led to a lot of pressure and sacks. And if those can get handled, then this team, if you can give Mertz more time, just I'm not even talking about you know 6-7 seconds. I'm literally talking about 4 to 5 seconds, because it seemed like every time they went and dropped back, Mertz was under pressure right away, instantly. And you're not going to have much success when that happens. So there needs to be some kind of difference there. and I know that Cameron Waits is progressing better, and hopefully he can get there eventually. I don't know if he's going to get there by the end of the year. I mean, we only got 4 games left, so we'll see. But this is what this team is right now. The offensive line struggles. I would say the interior, the guards and center, that play has been quite adequate. I just think the tackles need to step up their game. There was a lot of like Olay stuff where, the guys just ran right by him, and it was almost embarrassing. And I don't know. It just, the play needs to be better. I mean, that's just what it is. And so I'm going to go with my prediction. If they can get the tackle play a little bit better, I think they can win this game. I think running wise, I don't know if it necessarily matters. I think if they've shown in the South Carolina game, if they go to a passing first offense, that they can have success. Again, this defense, though, this 3-3-5 of Arkansas, struggles with a lot of things defensively. So, and I've never been the biggest fan of a 3-3-5. It's kind of very limiting. I prefer more of if it's a 3-4 or 4-3, at least there's a chance of more down linemen at the line of scrimmage. With a 3-3-5, it seems like you're going more just 3 linemen and then specifically 3 regular linebackers. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. But no, I think Florida, I think they can take advantage of this defense. I think they can score around, I'm going to say 30 points, and I'm going to say Arkansas scores like 20. So I'm going to go 30-20. Okay. Moving on to other games outside of the teams that we cover. So we've got Ohio State, Rutgers. What are your thoughts on this game, Ian?
Well, it's Ohio State Rutgers. Rutgers has had a good season, 6 wins on the year. But I mean, Ohio State, as much, I don't know if I texted you that, but I'm not sure they should be the number 1 team in the nation. But, regardless of that, I feel like, Ohio State should know how to win this game going into this. Rutgers has their good wins. But a lot of the wins were against definitely weaker opponents. Like they beat Indiana the week before in Michigan State, I think, by field goal. So they have their wins. They'll go to a bowl game, which is very good for them. But when you're playing Ohio State, the odds are stacked against you. We'll see how fast the offense starts up for Ohio State, because that's been another thing. Is it takes a while for the offense to really get going. But regardless of that, I see Ohio State winning this one. I'm gonna go. Let's go like 35-17.
Yeah. The noteworthy thing about Rutgers is when this little sign stealing gate or sign stealing controversy came up, one of the first things I saw on Twitter was a clip of Greg Schiano talking about how mad he was about the stuff that Michigan was doing, and specifically in that game earlier this year. So, maybe in that game, if they're not sign stealing, maybe Rutgers has a better game and maybe they make it more competitive. But that game was pretty close to a blowout. So I don't know. I mean, again, a lot of these teams in the Big Ten play a lot of terrible teams, so you don't really know how truly good they are. Rutgers, we'll see. I know that Ohio State is definitely very sound on defense. Jim Knowles is a great defensive coordinator, and I always talked about how much I liked the job he's done, especially when he was at Oklahoma State and now at Ohio State. And he's a phenomenal coordinator. I think probably the best in the country. McCord, if he can get, continue his success. Marvin Harrison Jr., that connection right there has been getting better and better every game. Last week, it was phenomenal. Like, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is not in that game, they may not beat Wisconsin the way they did because Marvin Harrison Jr. was all over that team and was making plays all game. So with that, I'm going to say Ohio State's probably going to score at least 28, and I'll probably say 28 to like 28 to 10. Okay, moving on. Kansas State, Texas. This is a big game because Kansas State is still in the mix for the Big 12 championship game appearance. Texas obviously is as well. Texas only has one loss. Kansas State has a lot to play for here. They're very upset minded in some of these big games throughout the years. Texas with Malik Murphy as still taking the reins over for Quinn Ewers. I think Texas should win this game because it's in Austin. I like Texas in this game because how well they played last week against BYU with Murphy at quarterback. I think that they should win probably like 32 to like 24 in a somewhat close one. What do you got?
Yeah, I think, Kansas State, again, another trap game, but Kansas State has definitely lived up to a lot of the expectations on them. They had their, loss early in the year and then against Missouri and then really bad one against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
But they, blew out TCU, shut out Houston, beat Tech. They've gotten their good wins in Texas. Bit shaky against Houston, but they got a good win against BYU. I think overall, just atmospheric wise, I don't see Texas losing in Austin right now. I do think Kansas State's going to put up a fight, but I think Texas will have enough firepower to hold them at bay. So I'm going to go Longhorns winning. I'll go with 34 to 28 win for Texas.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. I mean, it just obviously our scores are close, but I think it's going to be a close game regardless. Both of these teams are very good teams, and I think Texas has enough firepower to overcome it. Okay, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. This Ole Miss team has a ton on the line here because regardless if they get to Atlanta, they still have a very decent chance of getting to a playoff spot if a bunch of teams lose in front of them. So they have to keep winning. Their schedule is pretty favorable the rest of the year. This is probably one of their toughest contests outside of Georgia. So they need to win this game here to keep pace. Alabama doesn't have any SEC losses, and Alabama already beat Ole Miss. So they technically have like a 2-game edge on them. So they would need a lot to be able to get into Atlanta, which seems unlikely. But the funny thing is the unlikelihood of getting to Atlanta, but they have a higher likelihood of getting into the playoff, which is ridiculous how that works. But this is just the scenario. So with that, I like Ole Miss a lot, but the defense of Texas A&M gives me the thought that Texas A&M can slow down Lane Kiffin. I know in recent years, Lane has been able to score a decent amount on the Aggies. I think that Ole Miss can still win this game. It's going to be close. Seems like last couple of weeks, Ole Miss has only been scoring about 28, 33 points or like vacillating between that number. So I'm thinking it's going to be about the same as well. I'll say like 28 to like 24 in a real close one. And I think Ole Miss probably scores at the very end to win it. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I think in this one, this is going to be one of the rare times where I think the offense will actually outperform a strong defense. Ole Miss has an elite offense, especially with Jackson Dart and Junkins, the tandem they have both rushing and passing, and that is going to be really tough for A&M to slow down. A&M had a tough, struggled mightily against Tennessee with that kind of attack. And they played up against Bama, and they obviously lost to Miami. But we see when they have a balanced attack, A&M's defense has a hard time catching up to it, and then it's also tough for the offense to counterpunch after that. So I think Ole Miss is going to win this one. I would honestly say by 2 possessions. I'll go with a 31-21 win, 31-20 for Ole Miss.
Nice. Okay. Let's do these next two really quick. Notre Dame, Clemson. I'm only putting it on here because Notre Dame has like a very, very outside chance of getting to the playoff. But this game would have been a lot bigger if Clemson had a better record. But Clemson is now 4-4. And with Dabo Swinney yelling at his fans on his call-in show,
Yeah.
he's really looking kind of clownish. So I'm going to say Notre Dame wins this one. I'm going to say it. I mean, I like Clemson's defense, so that's probably the best part of this team. Their defense is solid, but I expect Notre Dame to score at least 24 to 28 points. I'm going to say, but their Clemson's offense on the counter to that is not very good. So I'm going to say Notre Dame wins like 28-17 because Notre Dame's defense is very good. What do you got?
Yeah, I think if it's a close game, I'm going to go with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, like we've seen Clemson, just for whatever reason, they can't win these close games anymore. So
No.
I think with this one, if it's down to the fourth quarter and all that, I'm going to call Notre Dame pulling it out because they've at least shown they can win those games. So I'm going to go Irish win, and I'll go with like a let's go 27-24 Notre Dame.
Nice. Okay. Next one. We've got, what is it? Army Air Force. I only put it on here because I know you know more about Air Force than I know. So I want to hear your opinion and then we'll move on.
Yeah. So as we've seen already, with the going on with the whole legend America's team Air Force, they're clearly, the rushing game and the rushing attack has been super effective, especially with all the motions they put out before the play. And I think with this, Army team that's really been struggling. They've been putting up good fights, but best chance Army has is just getting, making it close, making a Russian attack. So I think with this one, I'm going to go Air Force wins. I think it'll be low scoring again, but I'm going to go with like a 20-10 win for Air Force.
Yeah, I'm going to go like a 24 to like 7 game. I mean, I will say this Air Force defense has been probably one of the best parts of their team that doesn't get talked about too much because they've held almost every team they've played to very low total scoring wise. So I can see them. This Army team obviously has struggled. They got blown out by LSU 2 weeks ago. So I can see them struggling in this game as well. So yeah, I'm going to say Air Force 24-7. Next one, Arizona State, Utah. Utah coming off that huge loss against Oregon. Do they bounce back? This Arizona State team is very plucky. They do a lot of fakes, a lot of, trick plays to really like get at teams that are more talented. I will commend Kenny, what is his last name? Dillinger? No, Dylan. I don't know. He was the offensive coordinator with FSU, Memphis, and Oregon, and he has taken over Arizona State this year, and he, is pulling out all the stops to try to beat these teams. They played very well against USC and almost had them. They played well against Washington, and now they're going to have another game in Salt Lake City at Rice-Eccles Stadium where it's going to be tough. This Utah team coming off that second loss, which at this point pretty much buries their chance at a college football playoff, but with two losses may almost just eliminate their chances at a Pac-12 championship game berth. So maybe they're looking to rebound here. I really feel bad for Utah because if they had Cam Rising all year, they'd probably only have one loss at this point, and they may even be undefeated. So it's a real shame because this team is really good, and it is what it is when you have injuries like what Cam had that he suffered last year. So I'm going to say Utah does win this one. I think they come back from this. I really like their defense. Their defense has been the best part of their team all year. Their offense struggles for the most part. Barnes has been decent in some games and then really terrible like he was last week. And so I'm going to say Utah wins this one, probably like real low scoring, like 21 to like 14. What do you got?
Yeah, I think that this is another, one of those low scoring games because Arizona State has done a very good job of at least fighting, staying in. Like you said, they pull out every trick in the book to try to keep up with these games, and they've had these close games. They barely lost, put up a good fight against SC, and then they barely lost against Washington. They only lost by field goal to both Colorado and Cal, and then they finally got their big win against Washington State. The other thing too, so I know like last year I was talking about the home record and all that for Utah and how amazing it is. While doing that, I remembered this. So it was, I think 2019 was the last time they lost at home, just in general in front of a crowd. The last time Utah lost to an unranked team at home was 2017.
Dang.
I was still in high school back then. That would have been like my sophomore year or something. Or junior, something like that. I don't know. I try to forget high school as much as possible. But I would. So with that being said, that is a lot, riding on that. I don't see Utah dropping two in a row. I think they'll have enough to win, and Arizona State's going to give them everything they have. But I think Utah pulls out, and with you, close one. I'll go with like a 26-21 Utes.
Okay. All right. Another big game of the day, Missouri, Georgia. Missouri only has one loss. Georgia undefeated. It's in Athens. This is probably the biggest game that Georgia's had at home since probably last year against Tennessee. I believe it's at night. I'm not sure. Do you
3:30. Because it's on CBS, it'll be 3:30.
Oh, it's a 3:30 kick. Okay, well, whatever. 3:30 kick, not that big of a deal. But yeah, shout out to Richard. He commented again. Love seeing his comments on here. But no, yeah, 3:30 kick for Missouri and Georgia. This Missouri team, this is the toughest game. Obviously, playing, number one in the AP poll, number two in the CFP rankings. Either way, two-time defending champion. This is a huge test for them. It's a huge test for Georgia. Probably the best team they've played all year, especially record-wise. Can Georgia put up as many points as they did last week that they did against Florida? I don't think they will. I think Missouri has a much better defense. Their linebacker play is much better than Florida's right now. They are very solid. The only real team that's really scored a lot on them was LSU, which LSU is basically scoring on everyone. So I find it hard to believe that anyone can really stop that LSU offense except for themselves, which they did against Florida State, which I love bringing up. And if you watch this, obviously, you know that I've brought it up a bit, but that's largely why they lost that game. But no, Missouri can make stops here in this game. I think the key will be, can Missouri score enough to keep pace with Georgia's offense? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that they're going to get hindered. I think they might be able to score like 20 points, maybe even 24 points. But I think Georgia's going to score around the 28 to 30 range. And I'm going to say Georgia wins 30 to like 22. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and I think the other part of this too is Georgia straight up this year, and we've seen it last year too. They will sleep on games. Auburn, for example, wasn't a good game. Just off the top of my head. But when it is a game, a big one, yeah, they come to play. And they showed up big time last week. So Georgia knows it's at, Sanford Stadium, number 12 Missouri, and as great as the season Missouri is having, there's a big difference between, beating Kentucky and then like
Kansas
squeezing
State.
one. Yeah, K-State and these teams. It's a whole another thing playing Georgia, just straight up. So much as I want Missouri to play well, I think Georgia is just going to out athlete them. And they have the team's just too good to lose against a team like Missouri. So I'm going to go Bulldogs winning. I'll go like a 30-17 win.
Okay, next one is FSU Pitt. I'm just going to do it real quick because I think Pitt is going to get steamrolled in this one. I think FSU wins like 41 to like 14. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go FSU. I'll go like 35-10.
Yeah, there's not much there because Pitt is not very good. Oklahoma State, last Bedlam. No.
Yeah.
One of my favorite matchups of all time has always been a lot of really good games over the years. I remember the Sam Bradford game in 2009, I believe, or 2008, where he like is running to the end zone and he gets like he jumps and like
Jumps and then he
clip
like
his
does like a
legs and does
cartwheel
like
in.
spiral. Yeah, it's like, oh man, such great memories from this series, and it's a shame that it's going to end. I mean, we might see some things in the future, but as of now, you know, with Oklahoma State firmly staying at the Big 12 and Oklahoma definitely going to the SEC, it could be the end of this series for a long time. So it's a shame. It's it's what's
We
going on with.
sacrificed getting Texas and Texas A&M back for this.
Yeah, true. I know. It's like you get one or the other. So at least we're getting something in return. But no, I think Oklahoma can rebound from that loss last week against Kansas. It was a very close game. Kansas played very well. The defense struggled to really stop Bean, and Dillon kind of struggled in that game as well. I don't love Oklahoma State's defense in this one, so I think Oklahoma can get right as far as offense wise. I think Oklahoma State will still be able to move the ball and score a little bit here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be like Oklahoma wins like 38 to like 30. What do you got?
Yeah, I agree. I think because it's Bedlam, because it's one of the most unpredictable rivalries, there's going to be a hint of uneasiness. But I think Oklahoma responds after the Kansas loss, especially the defense has to have a better performance in this game. It is in it's in Boone Pickens Stadium, so it's always a bit of an uncomfortable place for Oklahoma in years past. But I think they get just enough done to win it. I'll go with a close one. Yeah, I'll go like 31-27 Oklahoma.
Okay. Next one. Interesting game because as of right now, these two teams are the best two ACC teams outside of Florida State, and that is Louisville and Virginia Tech playing each other in Louisville this year at Papa John's Stadium. Isn't that what it's called, right? Yeah. And
Yeah, it's like I'm always going to call it Cardinal Stadium, but I think that's what it is called.
yeah. So Virginia Tech is 4-4 overall, but they're 3-1 in conference play. Louisville is 7-1 with only that loss to Pitt, and Virginia Tech, if they win out after this game, they have a chance to play for the ACC title, which would be remarkable. But they have some games that they could get tested in. They play BC, which BC has been pretty sprightly, pretty spunky. And then NC State has beaten some
Yeah,
teams.
that's not. Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, obviously they have to get through Louisville first to even say anything with these other ones to be worthwhile. So I will say this Louisville team, I don't know a ton about. I know that Braum is the coach, and I know that he has done a very good job in his first year back at his alma mater. They have an outside chance, not an outside chance, a pretty good chance, because if they beat Virginia Tech and then beat Virginia, they would only have Miami to beat to get to the ACC championship game, which I think they can do. They follow up with a rivalry game against Kentucky, which is non-conference, but
Yeah.
I think Louisville can win this game. I think they're the better team, especially at 7-1 compared to Vatek's 4-4. Vatek, made some plays in that FSU game. I haven't really watched much of them outside of that because we don't really focus on the teams that are not very good. We try to focus on the teams that are really in contention of conference play, which technically this Vatek team is, but those other teams that are behind them as well, I think have better shots because both North Carolina and Miami are 6-2 on the season. So I think they will likely come out with better records than Vatek as the year goes up. So I'm going to say Louisville wins this game. I'm going to say they probably win like probably 28 to like 17. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go Louisville winning this one too. They've at least had the better wins and then proven they can win against tougher teams. Example would be like NC State, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Again, I can't explain how they dropped that and won to Pitt, but here we are. So I think Louisville they'll find a way to win. I think Vatek's going to put up a fight, but I'm going to go. I'll go 30-17 Cardinals.
Okay, next one we'll do really quick. UCF Cincinnati.
Somebody's getting their first conference win.
Yeah. I think Cincinnati's going to win this one just because it's in Cincinnati, and usually they play pretty well at Nippert Stadium. So I'm going to say they win like 28 to like 20. What do you got?
I am just going to say, too, it is definitely not the best look for either of these teams that, regardless of who wins, their first Big 12 win will be against a team they played all the time in the American. Just saying.
Yeah.
I guess there should be like an asterisk or something for that. It was like, yeah, they won technically a Big 12 game, but it's not a normal Big 12. Yeah, I it's in Nippert Stadium. It's, a very tough environment. UCF historically though has done pretty good against Cincy. I'll go with Cincy here in this one. This is another one where it's like, I mean, pick your favorite idiot. Either one of these teams can, just win it by accident, is what it seems like. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go Cincy winning because they've had at least, closer games with teams like, Oklahoma and Baylor. At least they didn't blow a lead to Baylor. So I'll go Cincy 28-20.
Okay, next one is Cal Oregon. I put it on here just because Oregon's now right there in the mix for the playoffs. So Cal played so well against USC, but largely to do with USC's struggles on defense. And I will say that Oregon wins this one because I just think they're a much better team than Cal. And it's in Autzen Stadium as well in Eugene. So I'm going to say Oregon probably wins like 38 to like 17. What do you got?
Yeah, when you just view the matchup, it's just not in the favor. The cards aren't in the favor for Cal. I think Oregon's going to win this one, probably win it big. I'll go 38-13 Ducks.
Okay, last couple of them before we get to the real big one. Kansas, Iowa State. I just, this Kansas team, they're still fighting. I mean, God, the coach for them, what is his name? Is it Leopold?
Yeah.
Yeah, Leopold. I mean, as much as people want to like talk about Deion Sanders a lot, why is there not like I know last year they had been like hyped up about Kansas like turning it around, but like no one's talking about them. They just beat Oklahoma, and which by the way, I called that one. I don't know if you remember. Yeah, and I was like wasn't for sure. I was like, did I call that one? And I went back and I posted about it, but no. I just think this guy Leopold is a great coach, done a remarkable job at Kansas, really like completely changed the like trajectory of this program. And I think Kansas can I think they can win this game pretty handily. Iowa State's been struggling all year. I think Kansas wins like I'm going to say like 38 to like 17. What do you got?
Yeah, I agree. The Kansas has had a remarkable turnaround, considering where they were a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think coming into this one, again with Kansas, they're still a bit wounded going in, and they had that great win against Oklahoma. But now it's a matter of they don't have a letdown game. Now you're going to Iowa State. Um, but I agree. I think Kansas is going to win this one, but barely. I think it's actually going to be a really close one. I think they're going to fall into a trap here. I'm going to go Kansas winning 27-24, really close.
Mm.
Because Iowa State, although they definitely have, I think they're at 5 wins right now, but a lot of the wins, with the exception, I know they beat TCU, Cincy, Baylor. I guess Oklahoma State would be their best win.
Yeah.
Because I know they lost to Iowa, but it was, and they lost to Ohio too. I remember that.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll take Kansas.
Okay. Next one, real quick. Purdue, Michigan. I think Michigan should roll, but just because of the controversy of what's going on with the signal stealing stuff.
Yeah,
So maybe that bleeds into this game a little bit. Maybe they, struggle in this game for some reason, just because there's so much controversy going on. But I don't think so. Purdue is not the same Purdue team the last couple of years because Braum is not there anymore. So I'm going to say Michigan probably rolls about the same score that they've been rolling in every one of these games that they've been playing. I'm going to say 34 to 10. What do you got?
yeah. I mean, whether they're going to be screen peeking or not, it doesn't matter. Michigan just had the better team overall. I know Hudson Card is there, former quarterback at Texas, um, but there's just not enough for Purdue to match up well against Michigan. I'm going to take Wolverines, knowing what they're calling or not. I'm going to take them 31-7.
LSU, Alabama. Again, always a big matchup. This time, though, LSU has 2 losses, which I think they did last year too. And then Alabama has 1 loss. So, and I think actually that's the same record, a similar record to what they both had last year. Because
Yeah, yeah.
Alabama lost to Tennessee and then I think lost to LSU. Yeah, they did. Because I remember watching the LSU Alabama game when I was in Austin for the Florida Texas A&M game. So yeah, so LSU with their high-powered offense, with Jaden Daniels and Neighbors and the other receivers and other, the tight end Taylor and so many guys that can make plays for them, and they're just putting up huge points. I mean, they're really on pace with the 2019 offense at LSU, which set records. So it's quite remarkable how proficient they've been through 8 games so far. This Alabama team, though, the defense is solid, and I will say that more so than any other part of this team. They've kept most teams in check. Tennessee, got up to a decent lead in that first half, and then the Alabama defense just steamrolled them after that. The defense actually scored more second half points than Tennessee did. And so, I think Alabama might be able to keep them in check. I think more so than any other team this year. I think this defense can actually prevent LSU from scoring 35 plus. I think they're going to probably score 28, and that's just really up to Alabama offensively, which that's the other thing with how well LSU's offense has been. Their defense has been terrible. So
Mm-hmm.
I think Alabama is going to be able to put up a ton of points. I'm going to say they probably put up 38. So I'm going to go 38-28 Alabama. What do you got?
Yeah, for me though, it came down to this when picking this one. Um, as good as Alabama has been this year, they haven't really had as many complete games. They played a full 4 quarter. Like Tennessee, they had to wait till the second half. Arkansas, that was a very shaky, very inconsistent. Same thing with A&M. The only ones I remember they really won out was Mississippi State. LSU, on the other hand, has had some outright like just wins. They had a terrible, loss of Florida State, and then they, got, just didn't have the ball last against Ole Miss.
No, they did have
And
the ball last. They
they
just
did have
couldn't
the ball
score.
last. They didn't have,
Couldn't score.
yeah. But for me in that one, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking LSU can pull this one off again because LSU has the number one rated offense in the country. And as good as Alabama's defense has been, when they played Texas's elite offense, the vertical passing game really carved them out. And I think Alabama's clearly going to adjust. They know what's coming. I think this is going to be a typical Alabama LSU game. It's going to be really neck and neck with each other. So I'm going to go last play probably, but I think Tigers pull it out in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to go LSU winning 26-24.
Okay. Last one real quick. Oregon State, Colorado. Not really much here. I just wanted to put it on here. Can Oregon State bounce back? Can Colorado bounce back? I think Oregon State wins this because of their defense. I think they're going to be able to get to Shedeur Sanders, and I think they're going to be able to score a decent amount because Colorado's defense isn't very good. And I think Oregon State probably wins like 28 to like 14. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take Oregon State winning this one only for the fact that, Colorado just can't get the necessary stops when they have to. That's been the story all season.
Yeah.
I just don't see Colorado, for this game, you're going to have to stop the offense at least 3-4 times, and I just don't see that happening. So I think the Beavers win out in this one. I think maybe a bit of a shootout, but I'll go Oregon State winning 34-21.
Okay, that is the show. You can reach us at You can reach us at haterradio.com. You can also reach us on all the socials for TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. It is at hater_radio. For YouTube, it is at hater radio. For Facebook, it is hater radio CFB. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yeah, it's at G on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
So follow us on all those. Like, comment, share, subscribe, do the whole spiel. It helps the algorithm to get us out there. Anything you can to help us out, we greatly appreciate. We love college football, and we like to, share our passion with you guys and our knowledge because we try to watch as much as we can. And obviously, even Ian knows all about Air Force, which how many people actually know about Air Force as a team? Not many. So it's telling you how knowledgeable we are, that we try to follow.
They know about the military force. They don't know about the football team.
Well, no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm we try to do our research as best we can and to follow these teams so we can give as knowledgeable of an answer with our predictions and what we feel the analysis of the game. So with that being said, oh man, lost me camera wise. You still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Some reason my camera went out. But anyways, that's the end of the show. Enjoy my dog, Max, at the end here for All Souls Day. This was him yesterday as a Dodger dog for Halloween. Enjoy these games, and we'll talk to you guys on Sunday. All right, take care.